Well, Franklin, as you know, is most famous as a patriot. His public spiritedness, his interest in America, his independence, all of these things lead him to become a revolutionary. And his most famous service to our country is as a revolutionary. So as you know, he's elected to the Second Continental Congress. As you may know, he was on the committee that drafted the Declaration of Independence. And then during the Revolution, he is a diplomat to France. That's the most important American alliance in the Revolution. He is the guy who creates that alliance, and that's absolutely critical to the victory in the war. And then he's elected, when he's 81 years old, he's elected as a delegate to the Constitutional Convention. And then finally, between 1787 and 1790, Franklin's a very old man at this point. He was president of the Pennsylvania Society for the Abolition of Slavery. So Franklin does many things for the country, and we're grateful for him to that. I'm going to add a couple of things he did on the side during all of this time. He helped found the first American Public Library as a young man in 1731. He helps found the University of Pennsylvania. He starts the first American fire insurance company. He's just always a busy and useful man. And I think saying that he was useful is probably what Franklin would consider the highest possible compliment. He's useful in his business, he's useful in his city, he's useful as a neighbor, as a citizen, and he's useful in the end to his country. Franklin is the guy who came up with this famous cartoon. I'm sure you've seen it before. This was actually made for the French and Indian War, trying to get southern colonies interested in the war, and not for the American Revolution, but it's most famous as a symbol of the American Revolution. And here's Franklin as the diplomat in France, where he famously wore this fur hat, and that was very deliberate. Franklin goes to the court in France. In the court in France, everybody wears makeup, men and women. Everybody powders themselves. It's a highly artificial atmosphere. Everybody wears elaborate wigs and incredibly fancy and expensive clothing. Well, Franklin decides he's going to be the opposite of that. The French have a fascination with this wild America, and Franklin plays it up. So he wears this fur cap, he dresses simply. Franklin's pretends to be this kind of aw shucks colonial boy, and the French can't get enough of it. He's wildly popular, he's very witty, that's important to the French court. He is a great flirt. He's a terrible husband, by the way. He was friendly and engaging, and he plays up this image of the wild American man to great success, and succeeds in creating this alliance with the French. Here he is in the French court with his natural hair and his simple clothes, while all the perfumed and bewigged ladies of the court surround him and are amazed by him. All right. Lastly, I want to talk about the American character he made. Franklin's a self-made man, but that's kind of a narrow thing. People think self-made men, that's a phrase that describes someone who's born poor and makes money. Well, that's true of Franklin, but he's so much more than that. Franklin is a guy who invents himself, and you can argue he kind of invents the idea of inventing yourself. He doesn't stick to the world he was born into. He's always self-creating. He leaves Puritan Boston, physically and mentally and emotionally. He makes himself a scientist, this businessman in a small town on the edge of the world. He becomes a diplomat. Franklin is a guy who believes that you can do what you want with your life if you only have enough imagination and intelligence and character. And that's why I say that belief, that example, is why I say he is the model American. And I think that's the real reason why there's still children's books about him. Because Franklin sets this example that you can do what you want with your life. It's up to you. And, we've all responded to that as Americans. So this is what I assigned to you as your primary source reading for this week, Franklin's 13 Virtues and his discussion of those in his autobiography. And here's the chart, which you should have seen by now anyway. Franklin decides, as you know, that he needs to improve himself. So he makes a list of 13 virtues: temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility, that he wants to work on. Now, none of these are religious, by the way. These are character traits that he thinks he could need improvement on. And so he sets the list of 13 virtues, and those are their initials on the left column there. And then he has the days of the week, and he decides on each week he's going to work on a particular virtue. So this is the week for temperance, and he defines temperance as eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. He maybe feels like he's a little bit too much of a pig. And he's going to work on it every day. And then he says, once he's concentrated on it for a week, he's made it a habit. Franklin's a huge believer in habits and their power, and the power of developing good habits. And then he's going to work on the next virtue. And at the end of 13 weeks, he's going to have conquered all of these virtues. He's going to have remade himself, remade his character. 13 weeks is less than a semester. Within a semester, Franklin is going to improve his character with this simple plan. And he makes this chart to show you, the reader, how he did it, because you can do it too. And this is the daily schedule. Big believer in schedules, guy who detested the idea of wasting time. And this is how he ordered his day. He got up at 5 in the morning, and when he woke up, he'd ask himself, what good shall I do this day? So, between 5 and 8, he rised, washed, and addressed powerful goodness. That's as close as he comes to prayer. Start the day's business, study whatever he was reading on, maybe scientific work, whatever was interesting him, and eats breakfast. 8 to noon, he would work. Between 12 and 2, he would read, overlook my accounts, do his books, and dine, have dinner, which we'd call lunch today. Then he'd work for 4 more hours until 6. And then in the evening, he would ask himself, what good have I done today? That's actually before bedtime. Before that, he'd eat again, put things in places, music or diversion, conversation, examination of the day. So he had between 6 and 10 for that, and then he would sleep between 10 and 5. So that was Franklin ordering his day. And in the evening question, what good have I done today? In the morning question, what good shall I do this day? I think Franklin believed that goodness was doing. That he wasn't a guy who was deeply contemplative. He didn't pray all the time. He didn't worry about the state of his soul. He worried about what good he was doing. And that's the difference between him and his Puritan forebears. He wasn't somebody who was in agonies, keeping a journal about, am I prepared to go to communion? He wanted to be prepared to help society, to do something better. And that wasn't at all inconsistent with helping himself. Franklin was a guy who believed in making money. He believed in doing well. He believed in all of that. So that's why I'm arguing that Franklin was in part a Puritan. He believed in virtues, he believed in character, he believed in hard work. Puritans believed in all of those things. But Franklin is a guy who's always concerned with this world. He doesn't worry at all about the next world. He doesn't worry at all about what's going to happen after death. He worries about what he can do in the here and now. He's secular in that way, and that's why I call him a secularized Puritan. This is a page from the novel The Great Gatsby. And in this, Jay Gatsby is dead, this part of the book, and his father finds this old book that he kept and reads to the protagonist, Nick, about what happens. So let me read to you from The Great Gatsby a little bit. And if you haven't read The Great Gatsby yet, cover your ears, because this is giving away a bit of the ending. It's a great novel, and you should read it if you haven't read it yet. So, Mr. Gatsby says to Nick, he pulled from his pocket a ragged old copy of a book called Hopalong Cassidy. If you're not familiar with Hopalong Cassidy, it's a children's book. Anybody over the age of 15 or so wouldn't read it. It's about a cowboy and his adventures. Look here, this is a book he had when he was a boy. It just shows you. He opened it at the back cover and turned it around for me to see. On the last fly leaf was printed the word schedule and the date, September 12, 1906. And underneath, rise from bed, 6 a.m., dumbbell exercise and wall scaling, 6:15 to 6:30. Study electricity, etc., 7:15 to 8:15. Work, 8:30 to 4:30. Baseball and sports, 4:30 to 5. Practice elocution, poise, and how to attain it, 5 to 6. Study needed inventions, 7 to 9. General resolves, no more wasting time at shafters or a name indecipherable. No more smoking or chewing. Bath every other day. Read one improving book or magazine per week. Save $5, crossed out, $3 per week. Be better to parents. I come across this book by accident, said the old man. It just shows you, don't it? It just shows you. Jimmy was bound to get ahead. He always had some resolves like this or something. Do you notice what he's got about improving his mind? He was always great for that. He told me once that I ate like a hog and I beat him for it. He was reluctant to close the book, reading each item aloud and then looking eagerly at me. I think he rather expected me to copy down the list for my own use. Well, this is Jay Gatsby's and F. Scott Fitzgerald's tribute to Benjamin Franklin, because Gatsby is a dumbed-down version of Benjamin Franklin. We've got the same scheduling. Waste not a minute. Schedule your time. Be useful all the time. We've even got him studying electricity. There's a nod to Franklin right there. Studying needed inventions. He's a dumb Franklin. And the same resolves. He wants to have 13 virtues, and he's going to work at them all the time. He believes in habit. He believes that if you make yourself a little better every day, if you develop good habits, great things are going to follow. All of that is present in Gatsby, and it comes directly from Franklin. And Fitzgerald is clearly signaling that, I think, with the electricity and the inventions. What Gatsby is an American who believes in self-improvement, an American who believes in good habits, an American who believes in work will lead to great results. All of that comes from Franklin. So that's what I mean when I say Franklin invented the American character. Everybody who reads books like this that believes that you develop good habits and you practice over and over and you keep your nose to the grindstone and you'll get ahead. Everybody like that is a child of Benjamin Franklin. And in a way, all of us in America are children of Benjamin Franklin that way. Anybody who believes in organizing themselves, who believes in scheduling, who keeps all their information in their Palm Pilot, this is an old-fashioned one now, who believes in scheduling their time, anybody like that is a child of Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin invents that type of person. Nobody before that is acting this way. They're all, worrying about witches. Franklin is the one that departs from that world and creates the modern American character. And so in that sense, he created all of us. See you next time.